the television there?
Oh, no, this is just for people in other places. Hare Krishna. So we'll be starting just a few minutes. There, that's good. Put this here.
Hare Krishna. It's good?
Yeah.
You want closer?
Yeah, that's good. So we'll start right now.
Sure. Okay, go.
Yeah, let's do it. Should we get a pretender?
Yeah, whatever you want.
No, I'm asking for
No. Is it possible to bring? Oh, is it possible to bring it over this way? The keyboard?
The thing is the power.
Okay, I can go over there if necessary. Hey, Hare Krishna.
We used to email back and forth. I'm Sachi.
Oh, how are you?
Good, how are you? It's been a while, but we were in Olympia.
Olympia.
Yeah.
So,
I remember. So we were going back and forth.
Yes.
Psychologist. And,
Yes.
Yeah. My husband, H.D.Goswami, and my 2 kids. So it came about an hour and a half just to meet you in person.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Hey, you like this?
Yeah. Am I going to play the keyboard?
Yeah, whatever you like to do. You are the one who makes decisions.
Oh, really? Power.
The other says, we can bring it over.
If it'll reach, that'll be
We can.
good.
No, that's a tie. We need to cut it.
Oh, right.
Hare Krishna, everybody that's out there on Facebook. Thank you for listening, watching. We have people from all over the world watching.
Can I introduce myself?
Yes.
I don't remember where I saw you last night, Srimati.
Oh, Srimati.
Yes.
I remember you.
Yeah, I remember you too, but I can't remember where. LA?
LA, sure.
No doubt.
I just come to LA all the time.
1968, Seattle. True Club had taught me the Navy.
When did you come to LA?
When?
Yeah.
Oh, must have been 1968.
And then you stayed for how long?
A couple of years and we went to India.
So you were in LA until what?
71.
Yeah.
And then Prabhupada said, Srimati, why are you not in me?
And you had no good answer.
I was happy to hear you were coming.
Well, thank you for coming. I will. Hare Krishna. So we're going to have a little kirtan. I'm going to play the keyboard here.
Will you center the keyboard?
No, that's fine. Let's see if we move this table a little bit like that, and then the keyboard over. Yeah, that's good. Hare Krishna. Could I have a little water, please? Is that part of my meal plan?
You'll have to try this.
Is it plugged in there?
Nice to see you.
We can't move this because
Oh, not so much. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Is it good?
Don't worry, you can pour it. That's okay, right? Yeah, that's good. Yeah, thank you. Oh, Sachi. I should introduce you to all the people around the world who are watching. Sachi. She's a wonderful 16-year-old Vaishnavi. And she is going to play the flute, and I'm going to play the keyboard. And if you're not actually here, if you're on Facebook, you can send checks. People there can throw money. Let's see. See? Okay. Or actually, you can right here. I change keys, I'll tell you. This is the mantra of Prabhupada. Let's see. You can. Okay, so we'll begin. Thank you all for coming. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama, Now I want to sing with you a song that Prabhupada sang in Seattle. Is that 1968 that Prabhupada came? And I remember when I was a younger devotee. Obviously, I'm still incredibly young, but I remember I heard that tape. Of course, we have those cassettes then. And it's beautiful. You'll recognize them, I play for you. And I only heard Prabhupada sing that melody in Seattle, nowhere else in the world, right? As far as I know. That's why I thought that here we should sing that. That can be, in a sense, a special Prabhupada song for Seattle area. And so this is it. This is what he sang. Jai Prabhupada. Thank you. So, if maybe we could just slide this over somewhere, we could give the keyboard a massage then. Oh. So again, thank you all for coming. Is there a Bhagavad Gita in the house?
Yes.
Is there a theological doctor in the house? Who are these girls? Hey, what's your name?
This one is Malabati.
Malaki, how old are you?
How old are you?
I remember when I was 7 years old. That was about 8 years ago. The other girl? Arshana. Well, thanks for coming. I know it's a great sacrifice for kids to come and have to listen to a boring lecture. But thank you for having the courage to come. Oh, who's that? Oh, what's your name? Gigi, how old are you? 8. And I told you, I forgot your age? 9. You have 7, 8, 9.
And here we stand.
Oh, yes. Well, thank you all for coming. And, when you grow up, if you become very rich, remember when I said that. So, going to read from Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as it is. Okay, I opened up to a verse, and this is a great verse for us to read tonight. This is chapter 9, text 3. And I'll read the Sanskrit and then Prabhupada's translation and purport. Bhagavad Gita 9:3. Ashadadhana purusha dharmasyasya parantapa aprapya mam nivartante mrityu samsara vartmani. Translation: those who are not faithful in this devotional service cannot attain me, O conqueror of enemies. Therefore they return to the path of birth and death in this material world. Prabhupada's purport: the faithless cannot accomplish this process of devotional service. That is the purport of this verse. Faith is created by association with devotees. Unfortunate people, even after hearing all the evidence of Vedic literature from great personalities, still have no faith in God. They're hesitant and cannot stay fixed in the devotional service of the Lord. Thus, faith is a most important factor for progress in Krishna consciousness. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said that faith is the complete conviction that simply by serving the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna, one can achieve all perfection. That is called real faith. As stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam 4:31-14, Yatha taror mula nisechanena kripyanti tat skanda bujopasaka pranopaharat jitendriyanam tataiva sarvarhanam achyuteja. By giving water to the root of a tree, one satisfies its branches, twigs, and leaves. And by supplying food to the stomach, one satisfies all the body's senses. So, similarly, by engaging in the transcendental service of the Supreme Lord, one automatically satisfies all the demigods and all other living entities. Therefore, after reading Bhagavad Gita, one should promptly come to the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita. One should give up all other engagements and adopt the service of the Supreme Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead. If one is convinced of this philosophy of life, that is faith. Now, the development of that faith is the process of Krishna consciousness. There are 3 divisions of Krishna conscious men and women, obviously men here. This is the old use of the word men, meaning everybody. A use which is no longer very popular in this world. In the 3rd class are those who have no faith. Even if they are officially engaged in devotional service, they cannot achieve the highest perfectional stage. Very interesting. Prabhupada says officially engaged. Officially engaged or outwardly engaged. But in their hearts, not really believing that I'm a servant of Krishna. Even if they are officially engaged in devotional service, they cannot achieve the highest perfectional stage. Most probably, they will slip after some time. They may become engaged, but because they haven't complete conviction and faith, it is very difficult for them to continue in Krishna consciousness. We have practical experience. He means that, though. But we have practical experience in discharging our missionary activity, that some people come and apply themselves to Krishna consciousness with some hidden motive. And as soon as they are economically a little well situated, they give up this process and take to their old ways again. In other words, they kind of get their act together. They get sober and they straighten up, and then sort of like, for them, the Hare Krishna is kind of like a quick rehab, and then they can go on with their real material life. So Prabhupada says he has practical experience of that. It is only by faith that one can, and let's remember what Prabhupada means by faith. He says, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it said that faith is the complete conviction. This is what Prabhupada means throughout this purport by the word faith. In the CC, it is a complete conviction that simply by serving the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna, one can achieve all perfection. Because if you don't believe that, you're going to think that, well, I can't just serve Krishna, I've got to do other things because my life will be incomplete, imperfect. There are important things in life that I won't achieve if I just serve Krishna. Of course, one has to have a mature understanding of what it means to serve Krishna. It doesn't mean giving up all varieties of rational behavior and, just doing some little service. Devotional service includes all kinds of careers, professions, achievements, whether in business, as an artist, as a scholar, it includes family life, it's a very rich life. But for Krishna, in Krishna consciousness, Krishna says in the Gita that he created the system of 4 varnas. So if you look at this varnashram system, it really includes life in its most complete sense. I mean, whatever we can imagine is a component of a meaningful human life, it's there in the system. The only caveat, the only point is, I do it for Krishna. So that's faith, that you believe that if I can have a meaningful life, I can develop my propensities, I can achieve things in this world, I can have a family, I can do all these things, but I do them for Krishna. And if I do all these things for Krishna, I will have all perfection. There's nothing, I won't regret, I won't have surrender's remorse, so to speak. I'd say buyer's remorse. If I surrender to Krishna, I won't come to a point in my life where I think, gee, I wish I would have done this, or I wish I would have done that. And not for Krishna. If you think I should have done this or that for Krishna, that may be a transcendental lamentation, or that may be a natural lamentation for a devotee. There's even that beautiful song, which Prabhupada once said was his favorite song, Hari Hari Vipalai. Hari Hari, uselessly I spent my life. I didn't surrender to you. So what we may regret not doing this or that, and Prabhupada said lamentation is purification. We may regret something, but we never regret that I did everything for Krishna. So that's what faith means. It means that you can live a complete life according to your nature, but everything is really for Krishna, and you believe that if I do everything for Krishna, I will achieve all perfection. That's what Prabhupada means here by the word faith. So, that was the first class of people. sort of, they don't get a medal. So it's only by faith that one can advance in Krishna consciousness. Krishna also says in the Bhagavad Gita, Shraddhavan Labhate Jnanam. Those who have faith achieve knowledge. Obviously, if I have faith in something and then I don't receive an experiential confirmation, in other words, I believe that I'll be happy if I move to some city, but when I get there, I'm not happy. So my faith that I would be happy there doesn't pan out. However, in Krishna consciousness, if someone takes up the process believing that by doing everything for Krishna, I can actually be happy and achieve everything, then that faith is confirmed that they're sincere. So it's a rational faith. It's a rational faith. It's a faith that is confirmed by practical experience. So, as far as the development of faith is concerned, one who is well-versed in the literatures of devotional service and has attained the stage of firm faith is called a first-class person in Krishna consciousness. And in the second class are those who are not very advanced in understanding the devotional scriptures, but who automatically have firm faith that Krishna Bhakti or service to Krishna is the best course, and so in good faith have taken it up. Thus they are superior to the third class who have neither perfect knowledge of the scriptures nor good faith, but by association and simplicity are trying to follow. The third class person in Krishna consciousness may fall down, but when one is in the second class, he does not fall down. And for the first class person in Krishna consciousness, there's no chance of falling down. One in the first class will surely make progress and achieve the result at the end. So remember, the first class one who completely believes that I will achieve everything in life by doing everything in life for Krishna, and that person also knows scriptures. That the person has, you could say, philosophical understanding, as opposed to just being a simple person who just believes I should do this, which is nice. Second class, you get a silver medal. So Prabhupada says, as the person, sometimes these third-class persons in Krishna consciousness have some tendency toward a karma yoga and jnana, yoga, and sometimes they are disturbed. Remember, sometimes they get all involved in just sort of speculating and intellectualizing life rather than, and not really devoting themselves. And then sometimes they just get a little too ambitious for some types of selfish achievements. And so they get distracted by karma and jnana. But as soon as the infection of karma yoga, jnana yoga is vanquished, they become second-class or first-class persons in Krishna consciousness. Faith in Krishna is also developed. So the difference, basically, I would say, between karma yoga and bhakti yoga, in case you ever stayed up at night trying to figure that out. In karma yoga, I have material propensities, things I'm attached to in this world, but I do them for Krishna. So I'm doing my karma, I'm working in the world according to my own propensities, but I'm doing it for Krishna. Bhakti yoga means I'm really attached to Krishna. So I'm engaging my nature. I mean, obviously you have to still, even in Bhakti yoga, you have to work according to your own nature. Krishna says in the Gita 3:33 that Sadrisham Cheshtate Swasya Prakritir Jnanavanati. Even a wise person, even one who has spiritual knowledge, acts according to their own nature. Krishna says, Prakritim Janti Bhutani. Creatures follow their nature. Nigraha King Karishati. What will repression do? But still, even though one is serving according to one's nature, one's emotional center, you could say, or one's primary attachment is really Krishna, directly, that one really is devoted to Krishna. And so you just look in your toolbox, see what you've got in there, what your propensities are, what your abilities are, and you serve Krishna according to what you've got. In terms of your psycho, physical, makeup, your abilities. But your real attachment is to Krishna, that's Bhakti yoga. Or, for example, one can intellectually admire Krishna. Krishna is intellectually very admirable. Not his Bhagavad Gita, his other teachings, like in the Bhagavatam, the whole process of Krishna consciousness is intellectually fascinating. And so one may simply be looking for a type of intellectual gratification or satisfaction and take the Jnana Yoga. But again, in Bhakti Yoga, Prabhupada says ultimately one goes beyond attachment to this world, even doing things for Krishna. One goes beyond sort of one's intellectual gratification, and the person really becomes attached to Krishna and really wants to serve Krishna. And that is Bhakti Yoga. So, faith in Krishna is also divided into 3 stages and described in Srimad Bhagavatam. First class attachment, second class attachment, and third class attachment are also explained in Srimad Bhagavatam in the 11th canto. Those who have no faith, even after hearing about Krishna and the excellence of devotional service, who think that it is simply eulogy, in other words, just praising a bunch of high-sounding words, they find the path very difficult, even if they are supposedly engaged in devotional service. Because you see, sometimes people are missing in action, missing in devotional action. And so it's interesting because we cannot reduce spiritual life down to a behavioral analysis. You know, behavioralism, Skinner? You know that joke, 2 behavioralists meet in the street? You know that joke? And one of them says, "You're fine, how am I?" Because behavioralism is you can only judge people by their external behavior, because you can't really know about their internal states. So, anyway, got a chance to tell a joke, and if you laugh, you'll go back to Godhead. So, the essence of Krishna consciousness is, remarkably, Krishna consciousness. In other words, your actual consciousness of Krishna. And so I can be sort of a sadhana champion. I can get up early and I can go to a temple or something, and I may really be devoted, or I may just be kind of, to use a dated term, grooving on. Did I just date myself? One may be badly. One may be simply seeking the admiration of others. It's interesting because in any human society, whether it's the Hare Krishna movement or Stamp Collectors Association or the Republican Party, to which I assume you all belong.
Or NRA.
Oh, the NRA. Right, the NRA. The fact is that every human society has values. Otherwise, why are the people hanging out together? So every human society has values, and every human society encourages its positive values, discourages its negative values through a system of reward and punishment. In other words, if you behave in certain ways in ISKCON, for example, people will look at you sort of like, "What's wrong with you?" Or if you behave in other ways, they'll think, "Wow, he's really a good devotee." And it's true in every society. Because without promoting what it considers to be positive values and discouraging in various ways negative values, it wouldn't be a society. And so a person in any society or community can become attached to those rewards and simply try to avoid the punishments. So every society, because it must reward what it deems positive behavior, therefore every society offers rewards. So someone could be in the Hare Krishna movement or in any other movement or in any other society and simply be attached to approval, praise, acceptance, and one can go on for years like this, cultivating those rewards. But one is not really cultivating attachment to Krishna. So what we see is, sometimes you'll see someone is in the Hare Krishna movement or any other movement, and they appear to be doing well, and people admire that person, respect, and then suddenly something happens, maybe there's a misunderstanding, or the person's caught with their hand in the cookie prasadam jar, or something happens and suddenly people change their view of this person and they withdraw their high opinion. And that person then says, "I'm out of here. Like, I didn't join the Hare Krishna movement to become humble." which is kind of what the message is. And so, or you may be a victim of injustice because we are conditioned souls. It's not like you shouldn't be shocked if you go to a hospital and find sick people. Like, oh my God, what's a sick person doing in the hospital? Thought they're only like handsome doctors and beautiful nurses and wearing nice white clothes. And no, they're sick people. Hospitals are full of sick people. And so the same way the Hare Krishna movement is, we're conditioned souls. We're trying to overcome our conditioning and go back to Godhead. But in the meantime, until we all get there, until we all become great pure devotees, there's a lot of conditioned behavior, even in a movement where people are sincerely trying to transcend. And so therefore, inevitably, there will be something which can be seen as injustice. And as the saying goes, justice delayed is justice denied. And so, all kinds of things can happen because it's a society of conditioned people. And so if one has become attached to those social rewards and those rewards are withdrawn, then people leave. Because, however, if you or I, if we have been really cultivating attachment to Krishna and surrender to Krishna, devotion to Prabhupada and Krishna, and let's say some people do admire us or like us, but we don't get fat-headed over that. We don't get puffed up, literally. And so, if we've really stayed on course and we're not distracted or deviated by social rewards, then if those rewards are withdrawn, we still have a very steady foundation because we were really building our life on devotion to Krishna. And so let's say I've been a victim of injustice, which happens. Sometimes I say if you don't have post-traumatic stress disorder, you must not have been in the Hare Krishna movement. So, but again, if we are actually attached to Krishna, then I may even think those people really mistreated me. It's not that we have to be kind of like noble martyrs and yes, please hit me again, it feels good. The point is injustice is injustice is injustice, and mistreatment is mistreatment, abuse is abuse. And you may have actually been a victim of inappropriate behavior. But again, that's not what my spiritual life is based on. That's not why I joined this movement. I joined this movement to get to Krishna. And so the fact that, let's say, people did mistreat me, it's just you could say it's just sort of a minor distraction. It's just or maybe it's a distraction. Because nothing has changed in terms of the actual goal of my life. And even apart from my own personal salvation, which I'm focused on, I'm committed to Prabhupada because Prabhupada saved me, saved all of us, and therefore I owe it to him not to be a rat leaving a sinking ship. Ship is not exactly sinking, taking on a little water. But so if I see that there are problems in Prabhupada's institution, if I went to Prabhupada, I know this very well, my time with Prabhupada. If I went to Prabhupada, I told him about the problems, I know exactly what he would say. He would say, fix it. Help me. If there are really problems, then I need you more than ever. So it's precisely when we see some of the inevitable silliness of any human institution, and religious institutions seem to be unusually proficient at this, but when we see the inevitable silliness in human religious institutions, we should think Prabhupada needs me more than ever. And even if you feel, well, I don't have the power to change it, but you do, because you are a member of ISKCON as much as anyone else. Your home is as much ISKCON as any temple. And therefore, if in our own home or with our friends or in programs that we initiate, if we are setting a good example, that is enriching Prabhupada's mission. That is actually part of the solution. So, yeah, I agree with what I just said. As opposed to occasions where I don't agree with what I just said. So, friend Brahmacharya, they're a very close friend. Sometimes they'll call somebody and they'll say, is this the person with whom I'm speaking? So
I got a call at 3 a.m. and they said, "Oh, are you up?"
no, I'm somnambulating. So those who have no faith, even after hearing about Krishna and the excellence of devotional service, who think that it is simply eulogies. We read that. For them, there's little hope of gaining perfection. Thus, faith is very important in the discharge of devotional service. So let's go over this verse again. I want to look very closely at the Sanskrit, the literal Sanskrit words. One interesting thing is the first word in this verse, ashradhana, which is translated here as those who are faithless. Actually, to get a little more grammatically technical, you can stand it, ashradhana is actually a present participle. And so it literally means for those who are not trusting. It's present participle. It's a negative, of course. And the word shraddha, often translated faith, it's also interesting. It's actually sort of a compound. Dha is a Sanskrit verb, which means to place or to all kinds of things like that, to place, to put, to establish. Actually, grammatically, historically related to the English suffix dum, like kingdom, freedom. That dum is actually related, D-O-M, is related to Sanskrit dha. But anyway, so shrad means one's trust. One's faith, one's heart, one's trust. And so shraddha, faith, is not simply a state, like a state of faith. It's an action. It's very interesting. The word shraddha is actually an action. It's the action of placing your trust continuously. And also, often in this world, people talk about faith. It means something like, do you believe in God? And that kind of faith, believing that God exists, is actually a different word in Sanskrit. The word for that is astikya, which is one of the qualities of the Brahmins. The Sanskrit verb asti means he, she, or it is. In fact, the S in is the Sanskrit S in asti. And that's why you have words like asti in so many languages. German, ist. Ist, he is. So ist is just Sanskrit asti. And French, if you pronounce it phonetically, which it used to be est, E-S-T, they say like il est, but it's actually spelled E-S-T. Est, German ist, English is, Spanish es, and so on. That's all Sanskrit asti. So asti means he, she, or it exists, is, he or she is. And so from the word asti, you get the word astikya, which means believing that something exists, believing that God exists. So the belief, simply the mere belief that God exists, is astikya in Sanskrit. And the word asti, the verb asti. The word shraddha goes beyond that. Although it's translated faith here, but the word shraddha actually means the action of placing trust in something. So you can believe God exists. You may just think, he's obnoxious or something. So you may believe that God exists, or you may think God doesn't care about me, or you may believe that God is good but doesn't have the power to eliminate evil. That's one somewhat idiotic idea of why there's suffering in the world. This old question called theodicy, the problem of evil. The Greek word theos means God, and dike in Greek means justice. So is there justice in God? Or it's also often called in Western philosophy the problem of evil. If you have what philosophers sometimes call a triple O God, triple threat, right? That means he can run, hit, and field. No, a triple O God means omnipotent, omniscient, and omnibenevolent. Or on the Germanic side of English, all good, all strong, and all knowing. That's a different thing. Yeah, but thanks. That's also, yeah, omnipresent. That's also there. So you may think that there, for example, at the height of European rationalism in the late 18th century, there was a popular idea among some intellectuals called deism. Deism is the idea that God kind of sets the ball rolling. God creates the universe in the sense that he kind of gets it going, and once the universe starts going, God steps back and I guess, does other things. And the universe sort of unfolds in its own way according to fixed laws of nature. That was kind of a way of believing in God for people that didn't want to believe in God. So anyway, that was Thomas Jefferson was accused of being a deist, but of course he denied it during his political campaign. So there are people that believe that God exists but don't trust God. They may believe God doesn't have the power to help me, doesn't have the will to help me, or no one can see God. God exists, but God doesn't care about us. For Aristotle, for example, God was the prime mover. Aristotle said that basically causality accounts for everything. So there must be someone who's the original cause, and what he called the unmoved mover. In other words, there must be a God who causes everything to exist, but nothing causes God to exist. Because if something caused God to exist, he wouldn't be God. So Aristotle said, just on logical terms, the God of Aristotle is not the kind of God that you pray to on let's say on a lonely weekend when you have no one to go out with or something. It's not a God that comforts you in your sadness. It's just like a logical necessity. There must be an unmoved mover. So according to Aristotle, you wouldn't, trusting God or believing that God cares about me or God loves me and all that, not really. That's not Aristotle. So there are many different ways, and if you go through history, you can find many ways in which people, you could say, had the quality of asteikya. They believed that God existed, but not shraddha. They didn't actively place their trust in that God. And so the word shraddha, placing your trust, and here we have the verb. So shraddhana would be the trusting, the present participle, trusting, and here we have the negative, ashraddhana. The makes it negative, which we still have in English, like atheist, and so on, something like that. Agnostic, which means ajnani. So anyway, here the first word in this verse is ashraddhana, those who are not trusting, who are not actively, because you can say you believe in Krishna, but as I say, where the rubber meets the road, you can find yourself in a difficult situation and don't preach to me. Because, a difficult situation, like you just may not be in the mood for taking shelter of Krishna. So it's interesting. So here we have ashraddhana, those who are not trusting. Purusha, those persons who are not trusting. Dharmasyasya parantapa, in this dharma. Which Prabhupada translates here in the process of religion. There's an interesting little feature in the Bhagavad Gita, if you look carefully at the Sanskrit, and that is that Krishna uses the word dharma in different ways, like he tells Arjuna that your dharma to fight. But when Krishna is talking about Krishna consciousness, he always says, asya dharmasya, of this dharma. So when Krishna says this dharma, he's always talking about Krishna consciousness. So Krishna says, those persons who are not trusting in this dharma, which is bhakti yoga, parantapa Arjuna, tapa. You know the word like tapasya, like being in a religious institution as an example of tapasya. So tapasya means austerity, and it comes from the verb tap, which literally means to burn or to heat. Like, for example, the sun is called sometimes tapa, like the heater, the burner. And so here the word is Arjun, parang, means the other in this case. So one who burns the other or the enemy. In Sanskrit, anyway, we can go on all night about just the word para, how it means supreme and the other. It's a very interesting word in Sanskrit, and all the meanings are related. But paran here means the other, burning and the other as the enemy. The other is the enemy, burning the enemy. So Krishna says, those who are not trusting in this dharma, aprapyamang, not having achieved me, literally, not having achieved me. Nivartante, they come back. They come back. They return to this world. And Krishna says they return into this world, which is mrityu samsara vartmani. It's very interesting. This is definitely not a highly positive look at this world. Vartma means path in Sanskrit. And so Krishna calls this world the Mrityu Sansara Vartma, the path of the repetition of death. That's literally what he says. Mrityu. Death we have in English from the word Mrityu. We have words like mortal, mortality. So Mrityu Sansara. Sansara means the turning, like the cycles of birth and death. So Krishna literally said the path of death cycles. So let's say you're watching a football game, right? Which is obviously part of Bhakti Yoga. So if you're watching a football game, and let's say your team is winning end of the first quarter, they're winning second quarter, third, they're winning, and at the end they lose. At the end of the game, they fumble, something happens, and they lose. The fact that they were winning, so let's say out of a 60-minute game, 59 minutes of the game they were ahead. The last minute they lost. The fact they were ahead for 59 minutes may be interesting to football historians, but otherwise it means nothing. They lost, period. So in the same way, human life is like that. Krishna calls this world the path of death cycles, and he actually uses this term elsewhere in the Gita. The path of death cycles, because life is a struggle. At every moment, we're trying to stay alive. That's why we brush our teeth and go to doctors and dentists, and that's why we eat, and that's why we try to protect people we care about and make sure they're safe. We hopefully stop at red lights. I mean, we do a million things a day, not so we don't die. We're always trying to preserve our life and the lives of those we love, or just everyone. So, but at the end of the game, the final score is death 1. Us 0. That's the final score. And so the fact that, I was ahead, for 80 years or something, I was alive. Yeah, final score, death wins the game again. Yeah, and so therefore that's the final score in everyone's life. Final score, death. That's the conclusion. So Krishna calls it the path of death cycles. It's interesting because in the famous 11th chapter of the Gita, when Arjuna is literally just overwhelmed, mentally, emotionally overwhelmed by this universal form, and in this very dramatic verse, he finally says, Ko Bhavan, who are you? And of course, he uses the respectful form of you. Like in Spanish, there's tu and usted. So here in also German, there's du and sie. So in Sanskrit, you can say tuum. Oh God, I go into a whole grammatical thing about Sanskrit pronouns and how we still have them in English. Anyway. So I say we have a lot of pronouns in European languages, including English, that come from Sanskrit. But so the familiar form of you is tu, tuum. Is kind of like a pronoun marker, and which we have still in Spanish and Italian and Portuguese. Du in German, it's all Sanskrit tu, tuum, which is the familiar you. And then Bhavan is the respectful you. And Bhavan is conjugated in the third person and tuum in the second person. So it's in many languages like German, Spanish, and all these languages, the respectful form of you is actually conjugated in the third person. So, and Arjuna uses that respectful word here. He says, Ko Bhavan, who are you? Who are you? I mean, Krishna's his best friend. Krishna's his best friend. They're like super buddies. And yet he's come to the point where he says, who are you? Sometimes people say that to their spouses. But
especially after many years.
so anyway, here Krishna says to Arjuna says to Krishna, who are you? He says, Ugra Rupa, who are you in this like terrifying form, this awful form? And Krishna answers, Kalosmi, time I am. Lokakshaya Krit, destroyer of the worlds. Time I am, destroyer of the world. And just one last point, Dharma. The word Dharma, which is used in many ways, but it's also used in Old Sanskrit to mean an essential characteristic. The Prabhupada says that, like the Dharma of water as its liquid. And so you find this poetic expression in the Shastra, it appears in Mahabharata, where they say someone that the time Dharma overcame someone. Because the Dharma, the essential quality of time, is that it ultimately destroys everything. So poetically in Shastra, when it says the time dharma, Kala dharma, ability of God, that the time Kala dharma literally overcame that person, it means the person died. So, and Krishna says that that's what happens if one is not at least trying to be Krishna conscious. If you are sincerely endeavoring for Krishna consciousness, Krishna says, Neha Nehabi Kamanashosti. This endeavor is never lost. Prativayo Nivijay. There's never any diminution. Sualpam api, even very little. Sualpam api. Even very little. Again, asya dharmasya, of this dharma, meaning Krishna conscious. Sualpam api asya dharmasya trayate mahato vayat, saves you from the great danger, which is just your life ultimately amounting to nothing but death. So, if you are trying sincerely to be Krishna conscious, whatever your present state is, after all, you get graded on sincerity. So, if you are sincerely trying to be Krishna conscious, then you don't really die in the sense of your body, because Krishna says in chapter 6 of the Gita that Purva Jnanam Purva Dehikam. I'll find those verses, they're very important. Where Krishna says that the knowledge of your past life will come to you again. And he says that you will be drawn back into spiritual life by the practice, your spiritual practice in your former life. Going through the pictures here. That's when Arjuna, that's the section in chapter 6 of the Gita where Arjuna says what happens to people that fall down from Krishna consciousness. Like, are they just like the big losers? Like, maybe they gave up some of their material life to be Krishna conscious, they fell down Krishna consciousness and ended up sort of with nothing. So Krishna, of course, assures Arjuna that Partha Naiveha Namutra Vinasas Tasya Vidyate, that Arjuna, not in this life, not in the next life, is that person a loser. And that Nahi Kalyana Krit Kastya, indeed, no one who does good is ever overcome, literally goes to a bad destination. And then Krishna describes that Prapya Punya Kritang Lokan, achieving the worlds of the pious, Ushitva Shaswati Sama, and dwelling there for just endless years, which is being used sort of, poetically, it doesn't literally mean eternally. Suchinang Srimatang Gehe Yoga Prasto Vijayate. The one who fell from yoga is then takes birth in a family of people who are very decent people, literally suchi, clean, very decent people, and Srimatang, prosperous, so you can have a good life. Krishna says, or Atava Yoginam Eva, or Kule Bhavati Dimatam. Even better, one takes birth in the family of yogis, of spiritual practitioners who are wise spiritual practitioners. And Krishna says, Etadhi Durlabhataram. That indeed is rare to achieve in this world. Like Sachi, the other kids, right? Krishna, Chaitanya. Krishna says right here that to take birth in the family of wise spiritual practitioners is indeed rare to achieve such a birth. But obviously, Krishna says, Loke Janama Jisra. It's very rare, such a birth in this world. But why is it so fortunate and rare? Because Krishna is going to explain why. Because in that environment, you actually you reconnect to your past life, the Krishna consciousness of your past life. And so then Krishna says, Tatra, therein, meaning in that life, in that birth. Tatra tang buddhi sang yogam labate purva dehikam. Can that life, one, labate, achieves a strong connection with the spiritual understanding, purva dehikam, of the past body, of the previous body. Literally, that's what Krishna says. One achieves a strong connection with the spiritual understanding of that previous body. And yetate chatato bhuya, and one again makes further endeavor. In your last life, you didn't make it, so now you try again, you make further progress. Yetate chatato bhuya sangsidho gurunanda. One makes further progress toward the ultimate perfection. And then Krishna says, this is very interesting, Purvabhyasena tenaiva. By the previous practice, and by that alone. So why were you drawn to Krishna consciousness? Like, I can't believe I'm doing this. I can't believe I'm joining the Hare Krishna movement. I mean, people are just kind of like drawn to Krishna. You can't not become a devotee. You're just drawn to it. Krishna says it is by previous practice. The word abhyasa is an older word for sadhana. We say sadhana. In the Gita, Christians use the word abhyasa. So purvabhyasa, purva, we still have in English, former, purva. So by former practice, by previous, purva, by previous practice, and by that alone, kriyate, one is sort of carried away, or carried to Krishna consciousness, Yevashopi said, really beyond one's control. One is just sort of carried to spiritual life. And jigyasarapi yogasya, indeed one wants to understand spiritual life. And Shabda Brahmati Vartate. And such a person stands above the normal rituals and procedures of religious life. Because they come to Krishna. And then, of course, Krishna says that person actually achieves a perfection. But yet not by him. Anyway, can't go into all of the beautiful literary things Krishna's doing here, but yet not yatamanas to, sort of like endeavoring with true endeavor. Yogi, the spiritual practitioner. The kilbisha, fully purified of negative reactions, sinful reactions. Aneka janma samsiddhas, becoming completely perfect after literally more than one life. After more than one life, one achieved the highest perfection. Until jati parangati, then one goes to the highest, the supreme destination. And so therefore, and Krishna concludes this by, actually I'll just read the last two verses of this chapter, which are very significant. In chapter 6, Krishna says, Tapasi Jyodiko Yogi, therefore a yogi, meaning here a spiritual practitioner, is above the ascetics who do austerities, Gyani, Gyopi, Matodi, they're considered even beyond the Gyanis, Karmi, Vyasadika, they're greater than the Karmis, Tasmat Yogi Varjan, therefore Arjun, become a yogi, spiritual practitioner in Krishna consciousness. And then Krishna says, Jogi Nama Pisarvecham, indeed of all yogis, the one who is devoted to me is the highest. So it's for that reason that you cannot characterize Krishna consciousness, even if you're not perfect, even if, whatever, no one's perfect, still you cannot characterize it as just the path of death, because you are piling up eternal points on the Vaikuntha scoreboard. And you're getting spiritual points. And they will go with you to your next life. And that spiritual merit will actually guide you back into spiritual life. So you can't call that death. Because in death, let's say I dedicate my life trying to make money. Well, when I die, I lose all that money. Or I try to help certain people, but I die, they die. So material projects just end. At death, they just end. But your Krishna consciousness stays with you. You take it with you. And therefore, death is not death, because death has no power over your achievement, your assets. Death has no power. Like Krishna says, for example, in the Gita, in chapter 10, Mrityu Sarvaharas Chaham, I am death, and takes away everything. Sarvaharas, takes away everything. But obviously, Krishna is talking about material life, because he says clearly in the Gita that death does not take away your spiritual assets. So if death takes away everything in the material sense, but does spiritual assets, then it's not really death. You're in a different status. So that's Krishna consciousness. So any questions on these points? Yes.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for coming.
So many Simon-like points that you shared, and I loved hearing how you compared this idea of faith in God, or the idea of God, compared to the action of Shraddha. And I was trying to draw a connection a little bit with this idea that I think comes from the Nectar of Devotion, about hope against hope. And I was just sort of wondering, don't know if that's Bengali. Is it Asabanda? Or I can't remember what the term is. But I was just wondering, like, that seems like it's probably a different terminology with different connotations with it. I didn't know if maybe you could shed a little light on that also.
What was that context where you found Hope Against Hope?
I'm thinking, gosh.
The Prabhupada did use that term.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and it was one of the.
It's one of the 9 characteristics of somebody in the state of power.
I guess, it simply means that no matter how gloomy the prospects look, or like, oh my God, we're really in deep Mahatattva here. Like, no matter how bad it looks, you just know Krishna will save the day. You know, Krishna is the original U.S. cavalry that comes riding in. And it's just that, it's that unbreakable faith in Krishna that this will end well. That no matter what stage of life I'm in, and that's actually the mantra that Prabhupada would always chant at the initiation ceremony. Om apavitra pavitro va. Whether whether there's impurity, whether you're impure, pavitro va, or pure, sarvavastang gatopi va. And no matter what situation, literally, you got yourself into. And we have some real doozies. No matter what situation you got yourself into, sarvavastang gatopi va, jaksmanate pundarikaksham, one who remembers the lotus-eyed Lord, pundarikaksham. That person, bahya, externally, abhyantaram, and internally. It's interesting, the word abhyantaram, because antara already means within. Abhyantaram kind of boosts it a little bit, like a little booster, a little semantic booster. And so abhyantaram means like directly inside of you. So bhaya abhyantaram shuchi, that person is actually cleansed, or that person is clean, inside and outside, externally and internally, Sri Vishnu. So that's one of the great promises of devotional service, of Krishna consciousness. That no matter what situation I'm in, there will be a happy ending. Krishna will save me. This will turn out in the best possible way if I just hold on to Krishna. Because after all, I mean, we're born in different situations. We have different karma, we have different backgrounds, we have different fears, attachments. And so really, it's like they say in yoga classes, you're not competing with the person next to you. And then you try to stretch as much as that person and wake up in the hospital. So that's the idea. It's like wherever you start Krishna consciousness, or wherever you are now, if you're just sincere, if you try your best, if you really cry out to Krishna, then Krishna's pleased with you because you're trying your best, and you can't do more than that. So that faith that I'm really doing, this is the best I can do, given the body I got, my subtle body, this is just what I can do, and I'm really trying. Then Krishna's pleased.
Towards the beginning of your class, you were mentioning about the injustice done to us, and we kind of.
Oh, I just remember I've got not complaints, but gentle reminders that I have to tell people what the questions were. So, actually, if you don't mind, how would you like to be on television?
What am I supposed to be doing?
Here. This is Nanda Sutta. So ask your questions. There's all these people out there.
Oh, I see. Okay, Maharaj, in the beginning of your class, you mentioned about when injustice is done, we kind of lose it, feel bitter, and
yes.
And, you kind of explain, a little bit. Hari, can you go a little deeper? Because I'm sure you've been through similar situation time to time. And everybody feels that, whether in our family, in our workplace, temples, everywhere. I mean, we always feel I deserve the best, but I'm given a bad end of the bargain.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
If you want a longer answer, just put more coins in the meter. So, it's a real test. It's a real test because, there's the practice of Krishna consciousness. We go, I remember there was one time there was a story in South America that there was a friend of the temple in some major Latin American city who owned a karate school and, taught karate. And so one time, some people or some person was really disturbing the temple. So this, in a serious way, so this person who was a friend of the movement came and kind of went through, all this stuff like that. While he was doing all that, the guy just boom, punched him out, knocked him out. And so, it's like some people are really good martial artists in a gym setting. Like there's a referee and there's time limits and everything. But then there's the street. Yeah, there's the street, and the street is different because there's no referee. And so, in a sense, you have to not only be good at Krishna consciousness, play a good game in the gym. Like you go to a temple or you're here, we hear a class and we chant, and everybody can be a good devotee. But ultimately, what counts is what you do on the street. And by that I mean, when people mistreat us, which is, you can't be in this world not being mistreated. It's just not the way. It's just not, you're on the wrong planet if you don't want to be mistreated. And so, how we react, how we respond. Everyone can be a great devotee in a Bhagavatam class or in a kirtan, but when really, where the gross matter hits the fan, how do we respond in real life? And so it's really, the practice of devotional service is just that. It's practice. And what you're practicing for is life. We're practicing for life. And so do I respond with Krishna consciousness to life when life happens? There's all kinds of things. We're in a, how many times did Prabhupada say this is a miserable world? Like, watch out. This is Kali Yuga. It's really Kali Yuga. And so, the practice is just that. It's practicing for life. And so, why just be like, it's like being a great fighter in a gym, but out on the street, you get knocked out because you're not ready for the street. So that's the answer. Somehow, and all of us, it's, in a sense, we're all in this together. Someone is a sannyasi, someone is a householder, brahmachari, or someone's been in the movement this many years, that many years. And of course, it does, the process works, but still, all of us, there's another sense in which all of us are simply tiny souls in this world trying to be Krishna conscious in a very difficult planet. And so we have to perform on the street, in real life, we have to perform with Krishna consciousness. So any other question? Yes. Oh, could you please come forward? Please come forward and ask your question here. That way, there's two advantages that people, if recorded people out there can hear you, and if I don't like the question, I can sue you, and I have documented evidence. Hare Krishna, there you go.
So, Maharaj, my question is, why different people have different level of faith?
Yes.
And the second one is it really worth talking to people regarding Krishna consciousness who has low level of faith?
Okay. Part of the question was people have different levels of faith. People have different levels of musical ability, athletic ability, emotional IQ. It's just people have made different choices. We're all souls. We have free will, and some people chose better than others, but everyone eventually can make it. And the second part of your question was, what was the second part of your question?
Yeah. Preaching to the people.
Well, first of all, Prabhupada said discrimination is realization. We preach to people according to their ability to receive it. We're not just talking at them. It's like, otherwise it's kind of like those robot telemarketing calls where like someone calls and says, hi, we'd like to talk to you. And you say, go, excuse me, and then you realize there's no one there. It's just a robot. And so when we preach, we don't want to be robotic. Like, okay, there's all these things I want to say. And I'm not looking for signals from the other person. Like, what does that person want to hear about? It's like you're a doctor. I mean, I actually had this experience. I went to a so-called Ayurvedic doctor who I mean, the reason, I don't know if he's really bona fide, the reason he wanted to see me is when he was in the Miami temple where I was GBC. He had a whole building full of devotees. He could tell everyone that he gave me a free treatment. Everyone would pay him for a treatment. So basically, he just wanted to use me to make money there. And so he was badgering me so much, I finally let him come up to my room. And then I was thinking, okay, so in order that this not be a total waste of time, maybe I could find some symptom. I'm generally healthy. So I tried to tell him something. He said, no, don't tell me. If he's the doctor, he will tell you. So it's like, what? He had this attitude like, don't tell me anything. I'm the doctor. I'll tell you what's wrong with you. Which, of course, gave me great faith in him. So when you're preaching to someone, you have to know who the person is. Like, because certain parts of the philosophy may attract the person, other parts may chase the person away. So who is this person? What are their personal needs? What are their assumptions? What are their fears? So, I mean, when we're talking to somebody, it has to be a real conversation. It has to be a dialogue, not a monologue. Preaching has to be, to use a fancy word, dialogical. Preaching has to be a dialogue, not a monologue. So if it's a true conversation where it's like a doctor. If you go to a real doctor, a good doctor, the doctor really wants to understand you. Like, I really want to know. Like, the doctor asks you questions. How do you feel? What about this? What about that? And you tell the doctor really is trying to understand you. So when we talk to people, they should get the impression that we really care about them. We're trying to understand them. Otherwise, it just comes across as sort of telemarketing. And if we see that someone's not interested, don't waste your time. You're a Vaishnava, your time is very valuable. So, anything else? Going. Yes, they come and speak to you. And then after this question, I'm going to scroll down and see if anyone here asked a question.
This is not really a question, but a request to understand your experience regarding translating Srimad Bhagavatam.
Oh, okay. Krishna. It was just somehow Krishna, I'm sure it was Krishna that communicated to me in my heart that I was supposed to do that. So I worked hard at it, and Krishna made it all happen. That's the short version. What's it? Medium version? Oh, I've told this story so many times. I was in Brazil. I was in São Paulo, Brazil, and I just realized that this is what Krishna wanted me to do. I was in temple library, and actually it belonged to Lokasashi. It was his library, and I saw the Samson Grammar book, and I just picked it up. I knew that Krishna wants me to steal this book. I knew that Krishna. I actually didn't steal the book. I permanently borrowed it, but I just knew that Krishna wanted me to do that, and then I began studying, working very hard, very, very hard, working at it, learning Sanskrit. And then we assembled a team, including Gopi Pranadhana, who was very good at Sanskrit. He was the BBT Sanskrit editor. And then Dravida, the BBT, agreed to edit it, and everyone cooperated, and we just put together a team, and then we did it. Krishna, it's amazing grace, to quote an original expression. Let's see. Okay, thank you. I'm looking through for those of you who are out there on Facebook, I'm just looking through all these comments, and thank you all very much for your kind words and your funny emojis. Let's see. There's a question. How should you act when Krishna is taking all the things away from you. Well, he's not taking everything away because he's giving you himself. It's not a bad trade. If you say, well, Chris, I think I'd rather have I'd rather have these material things, and I can have you later. Because when Krishna takes everyone, Krishna says, Yasyahamana Gurnami, when I give my mercy to someone, I sometimes take away the material things. So if Krishna's taking everything away, but he's giving you himself. So if your attitude is, no thanks, I'd rather keep my stuff. We should take Krishna. And why should we be hopeless? I mean, if I had a hope to be happy in this material world, then I may be hopeless. But if my hope was to achieve Krishna, then I'll be really happy about it. I mean, I'm not suggesting that you actively pray to Krishna to take everything away from you. I have to admit, I don't pray like that. But we just have to go with Krishna. If Krishna takes things away and you stay with Krishna, then he can give you 10 times, 100 times more than you had. It's a test. You pass the test, you get a lot more than you had before. So we have to trust Krishna. If you don't, I mean, that's what Shraddha means, trusting Krishna. Thank you all for your comments. I'm speaking for the comments. Well, thank you all very much. So I guess we'll end here. And Hare Krishna. Let's go out and be Krishna conscious. Hare Krishna. Thank you all on Facebook. See you guys later.